When picking a new speaker, what's it like behind closed doors when the horse trading is taking place? Matt Gaetz said yesterday that McCarthy threatened to remove certain Republicans from committees if they didn't vote for him. I would imagine he can also offer committee seats to those who don't have one in exchange for votes, like George Santos. Does this kind of stuff really happen behind the scenes, like we hear about, or is it worse? What's that pressure like?
Well, the irony is just amusing. It's if Kevin McCarthy was such a fearful individual, he'd already have the votes for speaker.
That's a great point.
You know what I mean? This isn't Sam Rayburn, for God's sake, or Joe Cannon. So what we're looking at is the House is structured vastly differently. First, to Gates's point, look, don't complain about the consequences if you're trying to look courageous, right?
Right.
Oh my God, he's going to come after me. It's like, well, didn't you know that going in? But it's really an empty threat because we have the steering committee. Mm-hmm. Each state selects people to serve on the steering committee while some of the leadership have more votes. I mean, it's a collective effort. And so what is really going to stop Gaetz or others from becoming, get the seats that they want is the members of the steering committee that are angry about having to sit here and keep voting on a speaker's race with no better alternative in front of them. So they're going to hold their grudge. And McCarthy's not going to have to do anything because his supporters are largely probably going to wind up. Because remember, Kevin is supported by over 200 members of the caucus.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So those people are looking at these other 19 going, why are you doing this to me? Not Kevin. Why are you doing this to me? And making it harder for me to get reelected and making me look bad. And they're going to carry the grudge into the steering committee when those people get elected to that. So Kevin doesn't have the ability to punish people the way that people would think that they used to in the past. Plus, because of the nature of that majority, people like Boebert and others who are in swing seats are going to have to get Kevin's support to get reelected, because otherwise he'll never be Speaker McCarthy again. Or anybody who's Speaker is going to have to support them because they're the swing seats we need to keep a majority. So they're kind of like playing with house money and taking on Kevin, knowing that the nature of their seat is vital to keeping the majority in the first place. So a lot of this is the Sturm and Drang and drama that you expect, but it's not really how this situation works. And again, I go back to the fact that if you're really looking at trying to change the leadership in the House Republican caucus or even in the Senate, you have to do the spade work to build up the chits with your fellow members and to get that. In Michigan, we had a tremendous example of this. John Engler, when he first got elected to the House, came out of college. And people thought if you looked at the House when John Engler first started serving in the Michigan House, they'd have said everybody here could be governor except that guy. Except John Engler understood how Michigan legislature worked. He understood the rules of the chamber. He wound up getting elected, winning a primary against a Republican senator. Okay, he beat a Republican senator to get to the state Senate. And when he got to the state Senate, he wound up dealing with moderates and militant types, liberal Republicans, and he said, I want to change this place. Eventually, over time, John Engler not only brought in new conservatives by winning elections, he also led caucus insurrections with them, and he took power as the Senate Majority Leader. Eventually, he upset an incumbent governor who would have been vice president under Bill Clinton if he hadn't lost to John Engler by 1,000-some votes. So when then we watched John Engler transform the state. My point is that you can have constructive change. It takes a long, hard slog to do it. It takes people willing to do it, people willing to join the Republican Party and change that so that you can change the outcome of elections and support candidates that you believe in. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And unfortunately, when we act like the left, thinking we need a headshot and everything else will take care of itself, or some grandstanding gesture, it's not going to work. It becomes counterproductive. And it not only, the worst part of it is it leads people who want to join the Republican Party and try to change it, the people that want to run for Congress and try to change it, members of the House that may be willing to look at other leadership down the road. They're being turned off by this. And it's becoming, and that is the great danger. When you convince people that their efforts do not matter, that why should we even bother, that's when change never happens.
It seems like these people don't understand the process, because I don't see an off-ramp here.
If you don't understand the process and you don't understand what it takes for other people to get there, and if you're largely comprised of people who come from safe seats where you only have to win a plurality of your own party, to win it largely.
Mhm.
You don't understand the nature of America, the nature of other seats. You lack the political empathy necessary to understand, I know we need you to get back. How do we help you get back so that we can move the ball forward? It's in some ways, I think the best way it was explained to me is at the time was you have some people want to throw a touchdown on every play. And that leads to interceptions, that leads to problems, that leads to losing games. If you just get a first down, keep getting first downs, keep grinding it out, and eventually you'll win. Now, that is usually the case. It should have happened with Michigan over TCU. It didn't. I admit it. It should have, but they got out of their game and they started trying to hit home runs on every play, threw a couple pick sixes, and you see the problem. I remember back when I was there, and this should be a good guide, do you remember when Roy Blunt and John Boehner went at it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And when John won by I think a vote, we never announced the results, but it was really close on that second ballot. What happened was Roy Blunt looked at John Boehner and said, okay, it's over. We need to get together and we need to go forward.
Mm-hmm.
And John became the leader. Roy stayed the whip, and we did. And when we moved forward, Roy eventually went to the Senate, which probably means that he actually won in the end. And John got to stay, became speaker. But when you look at how adult that behavior was, to put the interests of America and the caucus and moving the ball forward first. Now, you may not like how Boehner wound up, but you did not see a dissolution of the caucus, and we were able to take the majority back eventually. Yeah. That was necessary. We're not seeing that here. We're not seeing any indication of that. And Americans see, this is not just a democracy. This is a delegation of your sovereign power through an election to these people, and you expect them to behave better than we see in elections, because these are the people who won, and they're supposed to go in and be able to govern. And they're not. If you can't even choose a leader from your own party, that's a problem. The other part of it, Brett, as you well know, is that the speaker is the speaker of the entire House. Mm-hmm. People forget that. That is why you have a speaker and a majority leader position. The majority leader is the leader of the party. The speaker is there to look after the interests and the prerogatives and the power of the House as a whole, as a separate chamber, as a separate equal branch of government, as the legislature. Pelosi, in many ways, Speaker Pelosi totally abrogated that. Mm-hmm. And she became the leader of a party rather than the leader of the chamber. And she did that when she refused to let Kevin name people to the January 6th committee. Right there, you knew that was a huge problem.